We did a lot of talking and a lot of walking all together last year. And Alexander, we also walked, remember, to the Herman van Veen Art Center.
Unforgettable.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was really good. And we talked. And during those conversations, I discovered how much you understand better than anyone how certain systems work. And today, as we see the issues in society rising, well, it seems that they rise, we seem to become more aware that we as humans beings are a part of the world and that we don't own it. And this awareness makes that a growing group of leaders of all generations step up and take action. And I too, like so many others, held on to the idea that life was well organized, such as the capitalist system, the education system, the healthcare system, government system, tax, business, political, the housing market system. But it seems those systems are shaking. And the vulnerability of these systems in society, they're in the spotlights. And also of the business community. So, as you're familiar in those sectors and systems, as you've been playing a big role in quite a lot of them, how do you think we should change these systems?
That's a big question.
It is, and there's not one simple answer, I know, when I was preparing this. But
there is maybe a simple answer, but not a very informative answer, because change at the end of the day comes around when enough people want it. And fortunately for all of us, that seems to be happening, slowly but certainly. Yeah. So I'm optimistic about the progress we're making and worried about the speed of the progress, which I think by any standard is far too low.
Yes.
And so the question is maybe not so much, can we start the change, because that has more or less happened, but can we speed it up significantly? And that is a challenge that applies at all levels, maybe starting at the, if you will, highest level, the political level, the democratic level, where I've been active with many, many others trying to work for change, but where we simply have to acknowledge that democratic change takes a long, long time, because we really need majorities to move ahead. Mm-hmm. And sinking below that, if you will, to the level of the private sector, we see change which also materializes in the kind of projects that have been competing for the award here, but where again a speed up is really urgent. And that kind of speed up at the private level, I think, benefits enormously from the willingness of big companies to take the lead, to set the tone and to encourage their employees to participate at all levels. So I'm very, very happy about the kind of project that you have been encouraging for so many years. And I think we've already seen a few very nice examples of what can happen. Each of those projects will not change the world on its own, but the sum total of those efforts will really make a difference.
Yeah, that's so great. And you said also it's going slow. Why do you think it's going slow?
I'm just looking at the statistics, and the statistics are not very encouraging. The world needs change, needs climate change, maybe first and foremost now, but also all kinds of other changes. We are running out of resources in many senses of the word. We have to plan for a future that will be more challenging than everything we've ever seen before. Mm-hmm. And we do give it a try, but again, the progress is insufficient to really ensure that the solution is appearing on the horizon. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of work ahead, and that can only be carried out successfully if a generation of which you are part is willing to take the lead, to set the tone in a better way than we have done, and to make sure that practical projects that believe in change really have a chance to succeed.
And when we're having our walk, you also talked about modern employment. Like, what does this ask from leaders of companies right now to give those opportunities as well to those employees?
Absolutely, and the good news here is that employees themselves want these efforts to be successful. And so there is a very down-to-earth argument in favor of these efforts that sits at the level of the companies, which is simply that to get the employees they want to get, they have to offer these opportunities and make sure that their companies are viewed as being in the lead here. So if only for that reason, but hopefully for more than just that reason, these companies are seriously encouraged to do what they do. And in the best possible case, they don't just do it because they want to get good people to work for them, but also because there's a personal commitment. Yeah. And again, I'm happy to say that at the level of CEOs, boards, there is that personal commitment increasingly visible, increasingly also visible in other countries than the Netherlands. We have, I think, a long tradition of commitment, of social corporate responsibility, but countries like the UK and the US, where these traditions are much less visible, are now coming around and realizing that stakeholder involvement, as they like to call it, is crucial to the future well-being, not just for the society they're part of, but also the companies that they're responsible for. I'm a big supporter of the SDGs. And as a vehicle, I think they can be tremendously useful. And I assume that all the viewers more or less know what I'm talking about here, the 17 goals that have been adopted by the United Nations that capture, I think, the core of what sustainability really stands for. And again, the good news there is that these goals were not created just by the political system, but with strong input from the private sector. And now what we need to do, and I think what happens already in a large scale, is that companies need to realize that they can contribute, and indeed are contributing already to some of these goals, that they need to make explicit what they do, and that they need to make sure that in doing that they contribute to the further progress on these particular dimensions, 17 in all. And to help them do that, each of those dimensions comes with indicators to measure the progress that we can and should make. So there, I think, is a very good opportunity for companies, large and small, to set up the change process that I was referring to by looking critically and constructively at what they have been doing all along, seeing where they can improve, and giving their employees an opportunity to be part of that particular change.
Yeah, and what I see is that there's a lot of willingness, but sometimes the question is like how would you make change? What kind of projects do we set up? And I think one of the things is to ask the right questions and to create this skill to imagine and to use your creativity. And you as well hold several positions in board of art institutions. And I would love to know from you, like, where do we get the inspiration from to create these new perspectives and these new projects that we want to do? Could art play a role in it?
Yes, and that also, I think, depends to some extent on the personal involvement of the people who have to initiate that kind of involvement. But I have seen, and as I'm sure you have seen, very encouraging examples for artists to interact with private organizations and help them get in the creative mood. And to get in that creative mood, I think, is also something that typically calls for a group interaction. Some artists, I think, have a special skill to awake these creative moments, but I think all of them can set an example, just as happened in the films that we just saw, where people were inspired by paintings. Art has the ability, the potential to really take you out of your own reality and to give you a new perspective on the world that you're part of. And that alone, I think, can help enormously to make people unleash the creativity that sits inside all of us.
Yeah, yes, and there's like over 300 people watching this show right now. They are also looking into how do I transform my ideals into action? How can I tap into this creativity? Is there some advice you could give for all those viewers that are watching
I would
right
hope
now?
that the people watching can contribute at least in two ways. Well, that's three ways. First of all, we are all members of families in one sense or the other. Some of us have children, some of us, but we all have parents. And most of us have a somewhat larger family than just parents. And in that very small, secluded setting, I think much of the change process really begins. Because parents, members of your family, are people you trust first and foremost. And they are, I think, first and foremost willing to listen to you and share your concerns about the world. Secondly,
so you mean actually having conversations,
having
to
a conversation
open up
and see if you can somehow
Yeah.
involve them, if only in your own thought processes.
Okay, yes.
Secondly, we're all citizens. We are citizens of a city that we live in or a country that we live in, and I would hope all of us, at least most of us, have an opportunity to influence what happens in those political systems. And I would encourage all the viewers to actively participate at that level as well, to use the rights that you have to be active, to be heard, first and foremost by voting whenever you can, but also to be part of the political change process that can only succeed if indeed all of us play the role that we can and have to play. And thirdly, all of us, or indeed most of us, have jobs of some kind, either part of larger or small organizations or on our own. And that, I think, is where the SDGs kick in very powerfully and forcefully, because organizations, small and large, can look at those and contribute to one or more of them in a very tangible and rewardable manner. So again, that third level is also rich of potential, rich of opportunity, and basically waiting for all of us to benefit.
Yeah. I also would like to challenge these leaders of those organizations and encourage those young professionals. We've been working very hard the last 8 months, and sometimes it's hard, right? Change is hard, and it takes quite some energy, but it also gives a lot of energy. So could you share some encouraging words also based on your experience as a leader and initiator to this whole group of people that are watching?
I would say that the young talents, the very talented young people that we've seen in action presenting all these ideas, represent the best possible future for our planet and in particular for the organizations that they're now part of. And I hope that the leaders of those organizations count their blessings, and especially the blessing that these young talents are willing to devote and dedicate their best time and efforts to this particular organization. And I would encourage them strongly to make sure that that investment, that willingness is not wasted, that they are really give the opportunity to have those talents developed to the fullest and to contribute in doing so to a better future for all of us. That is basically what companies are all about. And the fact that companies just have to care for their stakeholders, and that one of those stakeholders is the society that they're part of, I think is a very, very profound insight. And this is one way to translate that insight into practice.
Great, thank you. We will now look at the following 3 cases that have taken up the challenge.